My name is Ryan, but people may know me as Free Khan. I am a musician personally, but like professionally, I'm a visual artist, so like videographer, graphic designer, illustrator, that kind of thing.
And how did you originally get involved with the arts? We did this last time, didn't we? But it's like, yeah, I think start with what came first.
So, as a kid, it was pretty evident that I was like an artist. I used to carry like a pen and paper anywhere that I went. I wasn't very good at explaining things with. It wasn't that I wasn't good explaining things with words. It was just I prefer to explain things through images. So, like, if somebody asked me what I meant, I'd get frustrated and just be like, "Oh, I'll draw it out for you." And then I used to have this thing where I used to draw on walls, just like past, like way past the age. I'm not going to say of when you should stop drawing on walls when you're a kid. And my mom was absolutely furious at that. But just basically the urge to create in me was just unstoppable. I just had to create. It was an urge that, like, a feeling that had to be fulfilled. So that's when it started. And then in terms of like how I became like a graphic artist, I was always sort of good with computers, so that was like a natural path. And then I got into music a little later on. When I was like 14, 15, I listened to Kanye West's first album, College Dropout, and then I was just really inspired by hip hop, or that type of hip hop that wasn't aggressive, that wasn't about killing a bunch of people. And it was just another nice way to kind of just express myself. So yeah, and then later on accidentally fell into producing. Wasn't really meant to, but like in terms of self-sufficiency and being able to make music myself, it was just, I don't know, I just kind of fell in love with that. So it was just, all of it was just unintentional from my point of view, just pretty natural, really.
How did you learn most of these crafts then, especially like at a young age?
Well, I think I grew up in the YouTube generation. So, like, pretty much anything that I can do that people consider a talent, because I did dance as well. That was like another thing. I completely forgot. Like in school, I was always doing like drama and stuff, but I was like, I took dance. Um, and that was the first thing or skill that I learned off YouTube. Um, it was just like a no-brainer. You want to know how to do something, you Google it, and then obviously Google turned into YouTube. So in terms of like Photoshop and stuff like that, it was just literally just YouTube tutorials. In terms of producing and music, again, YouTube tutorials. So like, yeah, literally, and you know, just as a kind of a side note to anybody who wants to get creative, it literally is that simple. Like, all you just got to do is love it enough to be able to sit through tutorials day in and day out, and you'll get somewhere.
I got told that when I was learning video. So it was just like, well, it just learn the basics from a basics thing, and then anything else you need to do, just Google it.
Literally, we live in a special time, man.
I think it's great. So with most of your work, obviously it's so different talking to somebody who does so many different things. So every question I feel like is like about you, like specifically. But like, how often do you work alone, or how often are you like collaborating?
At first, I was like very close to the idea of collaboration, mainly because I was self-conscious about the quality of my work. And also, I knew that I had to be able to be comfortable with myself to be with other people. But nowadays, man, it's totally different. The minute I collaborate, like I mostly collab nowadays, I realized you add a new flavor that you would have never got otherwise to your own arsenal. You're learning from people. So like constantly like videos, collaborating. I constantly call like singers and like guitar players and bass players to my house and making music. And it's just like, now I'm at a point where I know myself enough from like a base level where I can start learning from everybody else. So yeah, would recommend.
Would recommend. That's great.
Yeah.
Bit of a meaty question here, but it does lead on between now and to the final question. Why do you think the creative arts are important? And you can talk about this like in a personal way to yourself, or you can speak about it in just like more of like a general sense.
To be right, okay. I'm gonna say it makes life worth living, regardless of whether you're an artist or not, because in in every facet of life we're engaging in it, and it's not just going home watching EastEnders, which is very important for downtime, which brings balance to work, which brings families together, which brings friends together, going to concerts and that kind of stuff. But even in a functional way, like who do you think like designed your kitchen? Like the fact that you come in a home and you feel nice and you look at your nice granite work surface,
Your lamps.
or type on your keyboard, and everything works nicely. Who designed the UI, the user interface on your computer, on your phone? It's all artists, man. Artists. It's not just about the indulgence of aesthetic, although that is cool. We are designers, which means we make things that are functional and work well. And really unsung heroes, definitely. But the world would literally fall apart without it. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, think about it. Like, it just, nothing would function.
Or even building designs, like, so
Yeah,
it
exactly.
would
Like,
fall apart.
literally would fall apart. Like, most great architects were great artists as well. So yeah.
And finally, how has lockdown affected your work and your future plans?
Pretty badly, if I have to say candidly. Don't want to romanticize anything. I know you get a lot of answers of like, oh yeah, I really needed this time. And in the ways I have really needed this time, it gave me a moment to think. But that kind of threshold was just like way overdue. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that went in April.
That wow, man, that just went really quick. So in terms of future plans, it's uncertain, but that's not bad for me, because when I decided to move into my own home and be an independent adult at the age of 21 and pay my own bills and be a creative professionally and try to make it creatively, I prepared for uncertainty. It's just like the nature of life. And even though like we want certain things and certain visualizations, I think like creatives in my facet, even though we have a disadvantage, that disadvantage can be an advantage because we're just always prepared for uncertainty, especially being a freelancer. Like, you don't know when you're getting jobs. A lot of the times it's like, well, a lot of money here, no money there. So yeah, it's affected everything. It's as I'm sure it's affected everybody.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, Ryan. That's smashing that.
Awesome. Oh, mint. At least my phone didn't cut off.